I didn't grow up in a home full of love. My dad struggled with alcohol abuse. My mom was depressed. I had to be a parent to my sister. Back then, I sort of really like formed this desire of like, I don't know if I can change this. Like no matter what I do, it doesn't seem to be getting better in here, but I'm going to create it for myself.
You've had lots of success with your businesses, so you're very driven, but what drives you at your core?
So I have two drivers of motivations. There's selfish motivations and there's selfless motivations. Let's talk about the selfish ones. These are things in life that I want for myself. It's just three things and one overarching theme on top of it. First, I want to have a strong body. Second, I want to have a creative mind. And third, I want to have a home full of love. And then the adjacent thing around all of this is I want to have enough money to have all these things. My selfless goal, my external goal, is I want to help founders win. I'm an entrepreneur. This is a craft that I get to practice. And part of that practice is teaching, helping, giving, because so many people have helped me out. And I know that all they have asked me to do is to simply pay it forward. Pay it forward to the next entrepreneur to help them get through help them get through their challenges, help them become a little better no matter what they do. And being in that world of I'm just going to be the best entrepreneur that I can be while I'm helping other entrepreneurs be better versions of themselves is deeply, deeply motivating for me. So these are my motivations that help me make decisions in terms of getting me what I want.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Round 2 podcast. I am your host, Nikki Corbett, and my guest today is coming to me from the Bay Area in California, and he is someone that I met through the Techstars program, like many of my guests. So, Mert, welcome to the Round 2 podcast.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for wanting to come and chat with me. There was one thing I was thinking about after having met you in Techstars, and you, I think, gave 3 different talks to our cohort in one day. And I thought to myself earlier, I was like, oh, well, we certainly won't have a shortage of conversation considering you can talk for like 8 hours straight.
It's a fault of mine. I apologize in advance.
No, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. Makes my job easier. Well, cool. So obviously there's going to be some questions I'm going to ask that I already know the answers to since I have heard your life story, but all of my listeners haven't. And I think you have a really cool story, and that's why I wanted you on. So first and foremost, tell me a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
I was born in Istanbul, Turkey, and all my life I wanted to be an entrepreneur. You know, like some people are born, they want to be astronauts. Some people want to be doctors and lawyers. I never got it. I was like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. That's what I want to do. And
so from a young age, did you know what entrepreneur meant at a young age?
Yeah, it was my grandpa. My grandpa was an entrepreneur, and then my dad. And I was like, well, that's what our family does this. This is our
what we do.
And I worked in the family business, you know, like entrepreneurship at a young age for me was just spending the summers at our family business. We made and sold mattresses in Turkey, and I loved it. I thought it was like the coolest thing. Like there's so much depth in helping people go to sleep. And I found like there's just like, I think good entrepreneurs really find this connection of like meaning and purpose in what they do. I felt like, look, the nation is resting because of us. Like I really like felt that. Really, really like deeply like invested in that outcome of like, hey, like, like we contribute to something that's really greater than ourselves. I started off like that, and I came to college in the US, and really my worldview just almost like expanded. It felt like I was in a video game, and I sort of like arrived at the sort of like the main quest area from Turkey to the US. And it was just so cool. I met brilliant people. I understood like, oh, like entrepreneurship means starting your own company, not working in the family business. Like that's what entrepreneurship is. Like if I really want to follow my grandfather's footsteps, like I should really do this on my own. So I set off. I built my first company with my co-founders called SwipeSense healthcare technology company. That was a wild roller coaster. We raised $24 million. I ran the company for 8 years as an independent company. Then we got acquired by SC Johnson, stayed there for another 2 years and continued running and growing the company. Afterwards, I did a little bit of investing, a little bit of teaching, a little bit of writing, but there was a hole in my heart that was the size of another startup. So now I'm building a new company. It's super, super exciting. It's a completely different one. It's in the AI space. Learning a great deal and helping a ton of people. It's a super exciting time to be alive because like I realize now in hindsight, that in our lifetimes, these technological shifts have happened multiple times. Like the internet came out, mobile devices came out, and now AI is coming out. And just the stuff that we're building with AI is just extremely, extremely, extremely exciting. So the new company is called 248, the three numbers, 248.
Okay.
And it's a thrill to be in this world. Every day is new, and every customer, we're building something new with them.
Okay, that was a long, that was a very quick way to talk about a very long journey. So, so I love though that you come from a line of entrepreneurs, and that you know, being a business owner, that spirit was kind of ingrained in you from a young age. So, how did you decide to leave Turkey and come to the United States to go to college?
You know, I realized it was my first year in college. I actually started school in Istanbul, Turkey. And my first year, I realized this is my default setting. I think a lot about default settings in products, applications. So it's like when you log into something, there's already like settings in place. Like when you unbox an iPhone, the default brightness is a default brightness. The default volume is a default volume.
For me, I'm at a point where I'm like, oh, the default text size is way too small. I'm like, I need to make that bigger.
make that bigger. Same for me. But the default setting is a good example of default thinking, like dogma. Like this is handed to you. Someone else decided the volume and you're just living with it. And I think a really authentic way to live is to make your own choices and live with those consequences. That's what growth really is. Like you make a decision and then you live with whatever happens as a result of it. And I realized like Turkey was my default setting. I was born here, and I love my country. Like this is a great place to be. I know you visited earlier in the year. You had a good time. It's a wonderful, wonderful place, but it's the default. And I don't know if I'm settling in the default. So that first year in college, I applied to a bunch of schools to transfer. I only got into Northwestern. So I was like, okay, then Chicago it is. And when I arrived in Chicago, it was this life expanding. Like I felt like my brain grew. Like I saw so many new ideas. I met so many brilliant people. I like the world is greater than Turkey. You got to be outside of Turkey to realize that. So that was the impetus. That was like, I don't want the default setting. And you know, like I've said, I'm a believer in like, if you're gonna dream, always dream big. So I literally only applied to the first top 20 schools in the US World and News Report. And like I said, I only got into one. So the decision was pretty easy for me. Of like, okay, that's where I'm going.
Hey, all it takes is one, right?
It takes one, exactly.
All it takes is one to get you in. That's so cool, because I love framing something as default setting, because that is so true. And I mean, you know, I feel like your perspective has got to be so different, right? Coming here, what were you, about 19, 20 years old when you came here? And so you lived this, you know, your whole life, your formative years in another country, growing up there, watching business. I mean, it is a massive, massive city. I mean, Istanbul is the 15th largest city in the world. There's like 15 million people. I know I'm telling you something you already know, but it's like, I looked it up when I was there because my friend and I were wandering around and I'm like, man, there are so many people, and trying to determine like how many of these people are tourists and how many of these people actually live here, and then seeing just like the hustle and the grind. I mean, I can certainly see how the you know, business ownership, the self-employment, the entrepreneurial spirit is so alive and well in a city like that, because there's people just hustling and doing things on every corner. But it's got to be so interesting for you to come here with that perspective and then arrive in the US and now, you know, and like immediately decide like, oh, okay, I'm going to build something here and I'm going to make something great. So as you got started, right? So you go through your college career and then you decide, is that when you decided, when you were done with school, like, hey, I want to start building something right away? Or did you ever go and work a traditional 9 to 5?
3 months into me arriving at Northwestern, I was starting a new company. We built the first organization was called Design for America. It's actually a nonprofit. It's now part of the IBM Foundation, but it was basically a student group. I think entrepreneurship is stuff you build. Like I saw this talk recently, really, really left a mark on me, is basically the idea that transformation is entrepreneurship. Like taking something, like take material A, turn it into material B. A to B is entrepreneurship, like transforming a good from one thing to the next. Raw iron into a bed frame, that's entrepreneurship. Silicone into AI chips, that's entrepreneurship. Messy data into insights is entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Transformation is where value is created in this world. Transform one thing to the other. And my first transformation was a student group that took uninformed, excited, kind of silly, but lots of energy college students into
Uh-huh.
design thinkers.
Oh,
That
that's
was
so
the
cool.
organization. And Design for America gave birth to the first real startup, the first capitalist startup, I should say,
Hmm.
SwipeSense, the healthcare technology company that I helped start. But all my life has been around these kinds of like transformations, and now I pay a lot of attention to like when things are transforming. Typically there's an opportunity or of value, like when things
Hmm.
want to transform but they can't. This is
Hmm.
usually a good place to sort of like find startup ideas and
Yeah.
businesses. Just like education can be anything. Like you can go to a university and like get a master's. That's education. You can go
Sure.
work at a startup for 2 years. You're going to get a master's too. It's going to be a different kind
Oh
of a
my
master's, but
gosh. Absolutely.
you're gonna learn quite a bit amount. So very similar perspectives.
Absolutely. The experience, I think, is so relevant, and almost, at a certain point, the experience that you've gone through, supersedes the schooling that you've had, because there's nothing like learning on the job and learning when you're actually in there doing the work and trying and failing and meeting different people and having new ideas and being challenged in different ways. So, speaking of challenges, now you mentioned with SwipeSense that you raised $24 million. Now, that is
Mhm.
no easy task. So, what do
Mhm.
you feel made you successful in raising that type of capital?
Preparation and perseverance. Look, raising money is not rocket science. Obviously you need to have a good business. And I think that's the
Yeah.
first starting point. A lot of entrepreneurs who are struggling with fundraising or progress,
Hmm.
okay, maybe you should just be better. I guess the hard
Uh,
truth that nobody wants to hear, like, yeah, maybe you should
yeah.
have more sales. Maybe your product should be more differentiated. Like ultimately,
Hmm.
fundraising is you're selling shares in your business, and those
Hmm.
shares are going to be worth more tomorrow than it is today.
Yeah.
Some businesses make that really, really obvious why they're going to be worth more tomorrow than it
Yeah.
is today. Yours
Yeah.
might not be the case. But assuming that you have a semi-decent business that has a big enough vision, that has traction, and you're credible, and that you can do this. Like there's a sort of like a binary yes or no answer to those things. And if the answers are yes, then what makes good fundraising great fundraising is preparation and perseverance. Preparation in that, have your data room ready. Like there's a lot of like tactical project
Yeah.
management side of fundraising that like entrepreneurs kind of like some gloss over. But like, is
Hmm.
your data room like ironclad? Is your financial model to the T, where you know
Yeah.
it inside and out? Is the FAQs, like people are asking you questions, are you securing that in a question bank that you memorize every single day? Like there's
Yeah.
real preparation and discipline that goes into being a good seller of
Hmm.
anything. Now you happen to be a seller of your shares, but it's no different than if you're a software seller. So you just have to be mega prepared in the person that you're talking to, prepared in
Hmm.
your own materials, prepared in the challenges that you're overcoming. That's on the sort of like the bucket that there's plenty of books written about. There's plenty of blog posts. Look, do the best practices. Perseverance is much more of a mental game. You will get rejected. It's kind of
Yeah.
like how the game works. And by the way, a lot of people, when they get rejection, there's this, because we're doing something innovative, because we're doing something no one's done before, there's a very common sort of like pitfall that folks fall into, which is they just don't get it. I'm
Hmm.
smarter than the investors that I'm talking to. That might be true, but it's also way more likely that they like the idea that you're presenting, simply the time hasn't arrived yet, which is no
Yeah.
different than them not getting it. Like
Yeah.
it could be a great idea and the time hasn't arrived, or it's a bad idea, you shouldn't pursue it. Perseverance is important because when Howard Schultz was raising $3 million for Starbucks, he got
Hmm.
rejected 217 times. And it's a pretty
Hmm.
simple concept. It's a cup of fucking coffee. Like it's not that
Right,
hard to
right,
describe.
right.
We're going to do
Yeah.
this with
Here's
Starbucks.
my
Like
idea. Yeah.
here's my
Yeah.
idea. It's coffee. It's
It's
20 times more
coffee.
expensive coffee. This is what we're
Yeah.
going to do. And like people who are credible people, like people who are pitching to, like these aren't idiots. These are successful business people. These are entrepreneurs. These are people who understand coffee. These are people who drink
Hmm.
coffee every day. I'm drinking coffee right now. Like Howard Schultz didn't have the excuse of like, what, they just don't get coffee. No, they
Yeah.
absolutely get it. And yet he kept going. This is very, very hard. And entrepreneurs need to sort of like understand that overcoming this kind of like rejection is very
Hmm.
much part of this journey. You just need to persevere. Not
Do you
giving up
think
is
that
a
there's a
ridiculous advantage.
Do you think
Go
that
ahead.
there's a part of like ego that can really get in the way of, because rejection sucks, right? Like nobody
Yeah.
likes to feel rejected. And whether it's in your personal life, in your professional life, if you like apply for a job and you don't get it, if you get bypassed for a promotion and you don't get it, if you want to go on a date with somebody and they don't want to go on a date with you, you know, there's all these different feelings of rejection that is ultimately like, I think our ego that can get in the way of you know, looking at it for what it really is and realizing that, you know, at the end of the day, especially in business, is it's not personal. So
Um, I don't know if the ego gets in the way in here, and here's why. I have a massive ego. I will come out and say this right now. I have a humongous ego. I think really highly of myself. I'm very, very like self-centered. Like it's one of my faults. To like, and look,
hey,
I think
awareness is the first step.
I'm self-aware of the situation. It's the root of my confidence also. So, you know, there's pluses and minuses. I will say, if you have a big enough ego, when somebody says no to you, the response is, well, your loss.
Yeah.
Sorry that you didn't get to invest. Like
Mhm.
if you were Google and Google got passed around too, like like
Totally.
very recent example, I watched the Capital Summit, Jeff Bezos talk. Jeff Bezos pitched 60 people and like, I don't know, 10 invested, whatever. People passed on freaking Amazon. Like
Yeah.
Amazon is like what, the number 2 most valuable company in the world as of the recording
Yeah.
of this podcast. Like people passed on Amazon. So
But Amazon then wasn't what Amazon is today. So
no startup is
Yeah.
than it is today. Like that's
right, but I
the
don't. But
game.
make no, absolutely. But saying like people passed on Amazon, they didn't pass on what Amazon is today. But
Of
I get your.
course.
But your point is that he kept going. It's back to the perseverance and what you were saying about just like keeping going.
And by the way, the people who said no really must feel like crap right now.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Dude, you
for
passed
sure.
on Amazon Seed, you passed on Google Seed, you passed on Uber. Gary Vaynerchuk famously passed on Uber Suite twice. Like
Yeah.
Uber Seed round. They did
Yeah.
pretty good. So
Mhm.
look, I'm sorry, investor, that you're not getting in. You know,
Yeah.
I think that if the true big ego move is to say, when an investor says no to you, is to say, hey, you're gonna look back in this
Yeah.
and feel bad.
No,
like
it's
that's
so
the big
funny.
ego move.
There's that one movie with Meg Ryan, You've Got Mail, and with Tom Hanks, and she is out to lunch one day with a woman who was like her mom's best friend, and her mom had passed away, and the bill comes for lunch, and the older woman goes to take the bill, and Meg's like, no, like let me get it, and she's like, oh no, I'm fine, and she's like, you're retired, like basically like all, you know, assuming this woman doesn't have a lot of money, and she's like, no, and she's like, I got it, I've got plenty of money. She's like, I bought Intel at 6, and like started laughing, and it's like one of my favorite lines in the movie because it's just this like little old unassuming lady that you never would have thought like played the stock market or did anything, and she was like, oh no, like I bought Intel at 6.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I love that. Like that, I want that. I want to be her. So tell me about your new company, because the name that you threw out at the beginning was one that I did not recognize. So have you guys pivoted?
We recently rebranded. It's the same company.
Okay.
So we went from Geppetto to 248. And 248 is much more closer to where I believe the world is going. It's exponential growth. 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, 32, 64, 128, 256. Exponential growth is sort of what AI enables in the world. And we really want to be pioneering that sort of like change in this new world that we're getting to live in. Yeah. I have a basic theory that internet made money because it did 2 things really well. It basically organized information. I'm looking for something and I found it better. And it organized products. I'm looking to buy something and the internet helps me do that. All of it really comes down to sort of like one box, which is the search bar. The search bar is like the grandfather of all like internet relevant businesses in my sort of like humble thesis of why the internet worked. Both of those are going to be entirely rethought, reimagined, recreated with AI. Take something like organizing information. Like I'm searching for a movie on Netflix. I'm searching for a or rental on Airbnb, if we're going to go down the product side.
Yeah.
I don't want to put in filters. I want to talk to my search bar and say, hey, I'm
Yeah.
looking for a really nice, by the way, you know where I stay at Airbnb, you know the kind of thing that I go for. Find me a dream vacation spot for my snowboarding trip that's coming up on this date. Make it something really special. And by the way, if you see anything that price drops, like any like promotions, prioritize those. It's a really interesting new way of thinking. Like it almost like what the
is.
website looks like doesn't matter. Like I think 20 years of like UI UX research.
Right.
Maybe it should just be text. Maybe it should just literally be hypertext. It should just be text that the AI is really good at reading. We're going to start seeing this. We're going to start seeing like human websites and then AI websites. AI websites don't care if the corners are rounded consistently. AI websites really care about, is the content consistent? Is the information actually relevant to the person that I'm working for? This is a profound shift. And similarly, when we are sort of like imagining products for the first time, like even something straightforward like a dating app, like think any marketplace business, anything where there is a supply and a demand, you're going to have a concierge. You're going to have like one of our so 248 is basically an agency. We build custom AI implementations for enterprise customers, and we have our own technology stack. So we're able to move much faster than internal teams they can on their own. So you can sort of think of us as sort of like a baby Palantir, and all we do is AI related implementations. And our work spans from customer success to sales to digital research, but basically like agentic workforces that are custom created for large businesses. If you think about like what the AI is going to replace, it's going to really benefit some industries and it's going to really, really harm some industries. The way I like to think of it is sort of like a quadrant. On the right to left side is real stuff, like an Airbnb home is a real stuff. Like a coffee mug is a real stuff. A piece of laptop is a real thing. It's a real world thing that I get to hold in my hands. A plumber is also in this category. On the left-hand side are digital goods. It could be custom goods, like Cameo Video is a custom digital product, or it could be a commodity, like an accounting service that I buy for $5 an hour on Fiverr, Upwork, like commodity. So, and that's the sort of like the up and down, like custom stuff versus commoditized, like generic stuff. AI is going to really benefit the top right. So custom real world stuff is massively going to be improved because simply things are going to be more discoverable. Like it's going to be easier to buy these things. It's going to be easier to get a plumber to your house. It's going to be easier to book an Airbnb home and you simply get more transaction volume. What's really going to be disrupted and almost replaced, almost to the point where it's no longer necessary, is all the stuff on the bottom left quadrant. So digital goods that are commoditized. We've already seen this happen. Copywriting for marketing, cold emails, like special effects generation. It's basically a commodity right now. Video generation, like short videos.
I saw something yesterday where it was talking about like AI as far as like video and photographs go. And it's like, we're almost going to get to a point, or what the person was saying is that we're almost going to get to a point where you almost need to assume that every photo you see has some sort of AI in it. And that you have to, just the way we view photography and video is through a different lens, because there's so much AI that goes into it, and you can see photos and you're like right now, I think we kind of know, like, okay, that's AI generated, but it's going to get so good that we won't know. Is it a picture of you and your buddies, or is it a picture that AI created?
I think it's very similar to filters. Like nobody bats an eye when you put a filter on something on Instagram right now.
Fair.
Same thing. It's just going to be a better filter that no one's going to bat an eye on, because it's like, well, why wouldn't you? I mean, no matter how good cameras get, people are going to use filters. Hello, like that's just the way it is. This is a very similar change. So 248 is. It's a 10-year vision. We're starting off as this agency where we build custom stuff. I think the next phase is just focusing on our technology stack and making that widely available for people to build stuff on their own. And I think the third is almost like a university where we're teaching people how to build an agency using our tech stack, and to be done over and over and over again. And I'd love to sort of like have a say in how AI applications gets built easier and easier and easier and easier over time. I think this is a moment where we're going to see basically humanity's course is going to change as a result of this. I don't really believe, I'm not one of those maximalists where like super AI is coming and it's going to become our god. Like, I don't really believe that. I think what's really going to happen is there's going to be some things that everybody hates to do anyway, that we're no longer going to do. Like in the early 1900s, there's a substantial amount of people in New York who all they did was shovel horse manure because there were so many horses around before cars.
Yeah.
No one's fighting for like, hey, let's bring those jobs back. We really got to shovel that shit. Like, it's going to be amazing. There's so many jobs like this right now where it's horse shit. Like, nobody wants to do them. We do them because they're necessary. Like I don't wake up and going like, boy, I really want to fill out that expense report this morning. It's going to be make my day. I really want to update my CRM. I really want to do like, nobody does these things. And of course we should get AI to do these things. And because those jobs exist for a reason, like they're useful things. I love that idea of the humanity's future. Like, I don't think we're all going to become musicians or artists. We're still going to have jobs. We're going to do what we do, but we're going to do the parts that are like really like meaningful
that we
to
really
us.
enjoy. Yeah.
I love that future. I want to get there faster than like the natural course of history. And that's what 248 is about.
Well, I think it's so interesting because it so goes hand in hand with where we are as a society. You know, I feel like we're in this moment where because of technology, we're more connected than ever. You know, you can have these video calls with people from all around the world. You can talk to anybody in any business in any country, and you can do all these things. Yet despite all of that, I feel like human beings are craving connection and relatability more and more than ever. So I think that with what you're saying, it's like having this AI that can do the things that we don't want to do, can open up the doors for us to really spend our time working on things that really give us joy, like spending time, like relating to people in different ways, because we're not having to do the mundane tasks that like, unfortunately, we have to do in order to be like contributing human beings in the society.
I can't agree more. And that's an exciting thing. Like, I really believe that. Like, I cannot wait to tell my phone, hey, book me a flight to New Jersey. And it does that.
And then it just
like
does
that,
it. No kidding.
That's cool. Like that
I mean,
technology is here.
You brought up Airbnb a couple of times, and even Airbnb, like one of the filtering things that lacks on there, it drives me crazy every time I'm going to search for an Airbnb. And I'm like, why is this not native? Like, why is this not in here that I can't just like search on this specific filter? And so I would love to just be able to say like, I want to book an Airbnb in this specific part of this specific city, and I don't want to pay any more than this. And I would like a balcony. Like, those are my things. So
totally. Well, what's even more interesting is now that let's keep on this Airbnb thread. There's certain things that just cannot fit into a filter. My taste. Mert seems to like marble countertops. There's no marble countertop filter, but the photos show marble countertops, and the AI is really good at analyzing what the countertops are made out of. Mert likes lit up rooms that face north. There's not a north-facing filter on Airbnb, right. And yet, if I say, "Hey, here's the 20 Airbnbs that I loved," find something similar to that, there's going to be 400 things in there that the AI is going to be able to notice and make a recommendation for me that doesn't even exist on the recommendation filters. That's amazing. That makes me want to buy more Airbnb things, right? That's ultimately, it makes me happier as a consumer. The world incrementally improved. And of course, like that's making Airbnb work is not our end destination, but it's damn awesome that it's way better along with everything else. And that's a very, very good thing. Not waiting on the phone for customer support because I want to cancel my subscription for something is a very, very good thing. And I want to be in that future.
I totally agree with you. You know, I think that it's funny as we move into this, I was watching another thing, and you touched on this briefly when we first started talking about how, you know, when the internet first came along, I mean, I vividly remember having this thought when the internet came out. I remember thinking like, I wonder how long this is going to last. I literally remember thinking that. And it's like, well, it's not going anywhere. It's still here. It just keeps getting better. But isn't that crazy thinking that it was like this new thing? And if I had that thought, I'm sure tons of other people had that same thought. Like, oh, how long is this going to last? How long is this going to be here? But it's like you have all these, you know, people that are skeptics and that are resisting. And it was the talk I was listening to was talking about how like AI is that next big thing. And it's like, if you don't get on board, you're going to miss it. And you're going to like not have all of these opportunities.
I felt that way when I saw all the crypto stuff blowing up in like 2020, 2021. Between you and I still feel that way. I mean, like I don't get it. I don't get why. When I ask them why is Bitcoin $100,000, there's really smart people giving sophisticated explanations, and I just go, why?
Yeah.
I don't understand why it's not $1 million. I don't understand why it's $1. Like,
Mm-hmm.
people are willing to pay for it is not good enough for me. Or
Well,
why a
that is
movie photo is
so
worth.
fair, because like if you read the Bitcoin white paper, it's so easy to understand. And I read that and I remember being like, this makes sense. I understand this. But I'm also with you where I'm like, the rhyme or reason to it being where it is now. I'm like, I don't get it. But did I invest when it was under $20,000? I did. So I'm like, cool, but I'm also like,
Keep it.
is this gonna last? Like, I don't know.
Totally. I think, by the way, of all crypto stuff, Bitcoin does have like a real argument for it. I still don't get like the NFT stuff or shit coins and pump and dumps and people.
Thank you. I was going to say that same thing. Like, there's that one, that girl that became an overnight influencer because of that
Hawk
Tua
girl.
Yeah.
The Hawk Tua
and her
coin.
like whole debacle with that. I'm like, I don't get it. And one day I was like, maybe I should sit down and read this so I get it. And then I was like, no, I'd rather do something more productive. But I don't get.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about like your passion and your impact and like what drives you. Because obviously like you're a very passionate guy. Like you've talked about like your big ego and your self-confidence, and you've had lots of success with your businesses. So you're very driven. But what drives you at your core?
So I have two drivers of motivations. There's selfish motivations and there's selfless motivations. Let's start with the selfish ones. I have a big ego, so let's talk about the selfish ones. These are things in life that I want for myself. These are things that I want to have more of. And it's actually really straightforward. It's just three things and one overarching theme on top of it. First, I want to have a strong body. Second, I want to have a creative mind. And third, I want to have a home full of love. And then the adjacent thing around all of this is I want to have enough money to have all these things, because money is important. Like, you can't not have money in this world. Unfortunately, money is a necessity in the system that we set up, but enough is the key word in front of it. Like, I don't need more money. I need enough money. Strong body is really important in that I believe the only thing we own in this world and the only thing we will ever own is our own bodies. It's the most sacred thing. It's the most valuable thing. It's the only thing that you have throughout your day, your sleep, anything. Money comes and goes, a house comes and goes, whatever, but your body is yours. And the more respect you treat your body with, everything else is better. Like, there's no replacement for health and then anything else.
Health is wealth, right?
It's the most important thing. And I take my body very, very seriously in that I want to be strong. Like, I want to be 60 and still lifting stuff. Like, that is a goal that I have set for myself. Next is a creative mind, in that it's my happy state. Like, I like making stuff. Like, I like producing. I like having jam sessions. I like solving product problems. I like playing video games with puzzles in them. Whatever it is, like whatever it is that gets my brain in that flow state of making things and figuring things out. I love that. I live for that moment. That is the thing that satisfies me and just goes, wasn't that delicious? That was incredible. That was awesome. More of that, please. And third is a home full of love. I mean, I didn't grow up in a home full of love. My dad struggled with alcohol abuse. My mom was depressed. I had to be a parent to my sister. And, like back then, I sort of really like formed this desire of like, I don't know if I can change this. Like, no matter what I do, it doesn't seem to be getting better in here, but I'm going to create it for myself. I don't have to lament for a family I never had. I can be excited about the one that I'm going to build for myself with my own family.
That's such a very mature outlook to have at a young age as you're going through all of that.
It's forced grow-ups. There's a lot of literature written about adult children of addictive parents, I think was the name of the book, if I recall correctly. It basically is sort of like a forcing function of growing up and being as mature as you can. So those are my selfish goals. Like, those are all the things everything that I do for myself. If I work hard, I want to have one, two, or three, like a strong body that's addiction free, a creative mind that's working on interesting things, and then a home full of love, enough money to fund these things. My selfless goal, my external goal, that also deeply drives me, is I want to help founders win. I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is my craft. This is a craft that I get to practice. And part of that practice is teaching helping, giving, because so many
Yep.
people have helped me out. Like there's no
Hmm.
way for me to pay back all the entrepreneurial greats that helped me get to where I am. And I know
Yeah.
that all they have asked me to do is to simply pay it forward to the
Yep.
next entrepreneur, to help them get through help them get through their challenges, help them become a little better no matter what they do. I believe entrepreneurship is a force for good in this world, and entrepreneurs are heroes. Like these are my friends, these are people that I look up to, these are people that I
Hmm.
learn from. And being in that world of I'm just going to be the best entrepreneur that I can be while I'm helping other entrepreneurs be better versions of themselves is deeply,
Hmm.
deeply motivating for me. So these are my motivations. These are things that really drive me in my life. These are like two big boxes that help me make decisions in terms of getting me what I want.
I think those are all so awesome. And I love that. Well, I mean, I love every single thing that you said because I think that there is like such validity behind all of it. The strong body piece of it, I think is so, so important. And I hope that that is something that you preach as you're coaching other entrepreneurs, because I think that, you know, with all of the work that we're doing, right, people are sitting in front of these computers all day, and it's so easy that you can just get sucked in, and then all of a sudden 10 hours have passed and you're like, oh my god, I've hardly moved, I've hardly done anything. And getting out and moving your body, it's funny, I was writing a LinkedIn post right before we jumped on this, and I'm talking about meditation. And for me, like, I've struggled with meditating every time I've tried, and I've tried really, really hard, and I've always felt like this is just a waste of time because I can't get to that place where it's just a zero and I'm just like letting the nothingness settle. I always end up thinking about something else. And I was on a podcast recently and we were talking about that, and she said, well, what else do you like to do? And I said, well, every day I go for a walk for like at least an hour, and it's like a non-negotiable for me. And she's like, well, maybe that's your form of meditation. And I was just like, oh, maybe it is. And so I just think it's so important to have that like movement and to be able to do things. And like you said, you want to be able to like lift stuff up. Like you want to be able to, pick up a dog or pick up a kid or lift something off a high shelf and not feel like you're unable to do those things.
Absolutely. And I also believe, by the way, your brain is a part of your body. So you will
Oh,
literally make better
1000%.
decisions if your body is healthy. So like your brain work better. My
Yeah.
instrument is my brain, and I want it to work
Yeah,
as good as possible.
absolutely. But so I also come from a line of entrepreneurs, and my dad, he went to like Indiana University for grad school after he got out of Vietnam. And that was back in, the late 60s, early 70s, when entrepreneurship was a word, but it wasn't a course or a major, or it wasn't, being talked about on everywhere you turn. But the man who taught him a lot about entrepreneurship, one of his things that he imparted on my dad that I've heard him talk about many times over the years is that like entrepreneurs replicate themselves, and they do that by giving back and mentoring and coaching. And I just love, especially with this podcast, is that every entrepreneur that I've had on, everybody is so giving and so wanting to help other people and wanting to see other people win and share that advice. And I feel so fortunate to have had all of these cool conversations with people, because it makes me better every time I get to learn from one of you.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. I'm glad that we can be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what does the next like 2 years look like for you? What are you envisioning as you move down the road with 248?
One of my big inspirations is a company based out of Chicago called 37 Signals, otherwise known as Basecamp. It's
Hmm.
co-founded by two entrepreneurs that I deeply admire, Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansen, DHH. These are two bootstrapped entrepreneurs that have built a project management software in its most
Hmm.
basic form. It's an organizer. But the philosophies that they sort of like brought up, the default state thoughts, are, for example, is one of Jason Fried's thoughts that I learned from recently. They basically view as like, hey, the work that we do, instead of just sort of like, hey, grow, build this thing, just raise $1 billion and exit and move on, whatever. Like, I think there's something to be said about a small shop that sells pizza that just tries to make the best damn pizza they've ever made every single day. It's a pizza
Hmm.
shop. They sell pizza, and the pizza is just so damn good. Luke Ali
Yeah.
in Brooklyn is a good example for that. Like, it's a damn
Hmm.
good pizza. And
Yeah.
the person who's making that pizza is very serious about the craft of pizza making, in that,
Hmm.
like, hey, there's a standard here that we want to uphold, and we want to make it a little bit better every single day. Pearls on a necklace. I want to do that when it comes to the software business. I want to build a
Okay.
pizza shop style software company that is
Mhm.
the best damn AI company in the world. And I'm
Mhm.
okay with it if it takes the next 20 years to do so. I'm going to do it my
Mhm.
way. I'm going to do it independently. And I'm going to produce something original in this world. That's my long view. In the next 2 years, what that looks like is really, really practical. I'm going to continue down this path, solve really hard problems with really smart people who want to work day and night on doing things that are really, really intense. I don't have any intentions, along with my co-founder, to sell 248. We
Mhm.
want to build this business to be as impactful as possible. We want to generate a ton of revenue and profits and share that with our team. Use that to solve even bigger problems that accelerate this transformation even more. And what we do is just simply by partnering with large organizations that are sort of ready for this transformation. Every executive and their brother and sister right now is thinking, man, I'm falling behind.
Mhm.
This thing is here. I don't have a chatbot on my website that does customer support. I don't use AI to sell my things. I don't use AI to help me do research, for me to help make product decisions. Like, it's
Mhm.
kind of crazy right now, but you have this like army at your fingertips. And
Yeah.
whether you use it or not, it's kind of up to you.
Mhm.
This is a real moment of change, and like everything that uses a keyboard and a search bar is about to transform. So I'm looking for more of these enterprise folks who have maybe even a vision or a prototype or a proof of concept that they've developed and say, hey, I know this is possible, and I know this would
Mhm.
be amazing for my team. I wish I had a Navy SEAL team that could just come in and help me create this.
Uh-huh.
Hello, my
There
name
you
is
are.
Mert Iseri, 248. Let's do this together. It's
Okay.
very much in a weird way. Like, when we sell things, we don't really sell. We're on the same side of the table because we're looking at a problem and go, "Could we do that? Hell yeah,
Mhm.
let's go. Let's do that. That's awesome." Like,
Yeah.
it's almost like for sure we should be building this. Like, oh my god, like inevitable. It's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. Let's just make it happen tomorrow. Technology is
Yeah.
here. That's what the
That's
next two
so
years look
cool.
like for me.
Okay, I love that. That's really exciting. So here's a question for you. So we've talked a lot about AI, obviously, and all of the
Mhm.
positives and all of the ways that it's going to benefit. What do you feel is a negative that you've seen in the AI space, or what's something that you have a concern about?
Well, humans are the problem. And what I mean by that is there's plenty of things humans do with bad intentions that are just going to be
Hmm.
done way, way more efficiently because of AI.
Hmm.
Misinformation about like that impact the outcome of a free society. Um, Fraud, deception. I mean, if I can
Hmm.
replicate my mom's voice and
Yeah.
call my sister and say, hey,
Hmm.
I'm in distress, do X, Y, and Z, that's a really bad thing. Like that, and that
Hmm.
again, like I'm talking about things that are already happening that are
Hmm.
simply going to be done worse with the AI.
Worse.
Like we joked about the Hawk Tuah meme coin pump and dump.
Hmm.
Well, that's happening every day, enhanced by AI.
Hmm.
People are getting contacted. I mean, my WhatsApp, Telegram signal are
Oh,
flooded with
right.
like, join this investing group, and like 20 people in that investing group people are like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, I just joined here, this was great, and you should buy this stock, whatever, all
Yeah.
AI generated. And there's one human in there, in this case me, to being like, oh, maybe I should buy that, but whatever, like get rich
Yeah.
quick crap. This is the Nigerian prince in the spam
Oh my
folder of
God. Yes.
there's a
Yes. I
it's way better
actually
now.
know someone, I mean, not know someone, but someone in the neighborhood that I grew up in fell for that Nigerian prince scam.
I mean, the
It's
version of that
crazy.
is getting really, really sophisticated. Like, I really feel for
Hmm.
people who are suffering from this.
Yeah.
But again, the AI ain't doing this. It's people using AI
Yeah.
doing this.
Hmm.
And you could make the same argument about the internet being a massive, horrible thing that happened in terms of like exploiting children, like in
Hmm.
terms of like human trafficking. Like, people are using internet for this, money laundering. People are using internet for this. Like,
Yeah.
I hate to say like AI is making all of this, because just like anything, AI is a technology and it does what we use it to do what we use it to do.
Hmm.
It's unfortunately a really, really efficient tool to fraud and harm people. And I really
Hmm.
hope that we bring in guardrails to avoid that and invent the tools. AI is
Yeah.
also a great tool to avoid these things from happening. But needless to say, it's a dangerous time to be, because the way the technology is moving, it's way faster than policy or defense mechanisms that can keep up with it. So I foresee in the next 2-3 years, we're going to see massive, massive examples of like, holy crap, that's the greatest heist humanity's ever seen, used,
Hmm.
enhanced my AI. That
Yeah.
is going to happen, unfortunately, and that's a very real threat.
Hmm. No, it is interesting. And it's such, I haven't yet thought about it from that perspective of that, like, AI is AI, but there's always like a human kind of behind it, or a human that kind of started teaching it how to do something. Right. So, I mean, from a learning perspective, do you think that we're going to get to a point where we are going to have that, I think it's the word is sentient, where it's has feelings, and you can, like, I mean, I notice I catch myself going into chat GPT and I'll be like, hey, good morning. And then I'm like, oh my God, you're talking to chat GPT. Like, you don't have to say good morning to it. Just tell it what you want.
It's already here. And the fact that I say please when I talk to AI is, to me, an evidence that I am treating this thing as a sentient entity. It's all perception. Like, by the way, like, I'm not in your brain. I'm fairly certain that you have a soul, that you have feelings, whatever, but I'm just taking it for your word because, I'm talking to you, and, I take it normal that this is, but there's actually no direct link from my brain to yours. There's no direct link between me and ChatGPT, and yet I'm treating it as if it has feelings and as if it knows the things. And, like, I think the sort of like the technical definition here is unimportant. Like, does this thing technically have feelings or a soul? Of course it doesn't. It's a machine, but it behaves very much like as if it has feelings. Like, when you talk to it nicely, it talks back to you nicely. I ask things and I say please and thank you. Like, just like anything. I think that's a really wonderful thing. That just makes me think that this is more useful, and that I like talking to ChatGPT. Like, I wouldn't like it if it kept making grammar mistakes or cussed me out every once in a while or whatever it is. Like, to me, the sign of AGI is, do I like it? This is a really interesting sort of like philosophical debate, because we could also define the sentience AGI simply as a matter of usefulness. Like, if the AI, and by the way, this is almost certainly going to happen in the next like 3 to 5 years, AI is already a PhD level programmer, for example. That's the first mountain we conquered. But it's also going to be a PhD level like language educator, PhD level plumber. Like, you'll be able to ask, like, hey, I see this weird like nut in my bathroom and it's leaking. What am I going to do? Can I just show it to you? You're going to point your phone to it and be like, oh, I know what that is. You need this and this and this. By the way, I added it to your cart. It's going to arrive in the next hour. Just do X, Y, and Z and you'll be good to go. Like, is that super AI? Yeah, it sounds pretty freaking super to me. Like, it has PhD level information on anything that I care to know about. Every question that I'm wondering, it can give me like a really, really thoughtful answer. That's super AGI, maybe. Like, maybe we go to it in that way in terms of its usefulness. I will say there's one area, and I'm really looking hard on this. It seems like it hasn't been able to crack yet, simply because it's too diverse. Humor is really hard. AI is notoriously bad at being funny. It doesn't tell jokes in a matter that has good cadence. It comes up with stuff that's really like generic. Like, I don't like, I have a particular stuff that I laugh at, and again, I grew up in Turkey. There's Turkish comedians that probably AI's models haven't been trained on, whatever it is. But it's hard to be funny, and maybe, just maybe, that's going to be the last bastion that we hold on to as human intelligence versus machine intelligence, is that human intelligence will never cease to be funny.
I wonder what level of, context and what level of just, that intimate human interaction that we have that makes comedians able to write jokes that are funny, that the AI lacks, because it doesn't have all the context cues and all of like the just intimate things that happen when you're in a room full of people. Or just in scenarios, like ultimately comedians are amazing storytellers, right? They're the best storytellers. So for them to be able to experience something or listen to somebody else's experience of something and then create that into a bit, that would be my first thought on like why AI is not good at it and maybe never will be.
Who knows? I'm looking for my first belly laugh that the AI gives me. Plenty of belly laughs from comedians and my friends. I'm yet to get one. I've smirked a couple times, but I haven't gotten like, oh, I'm rolling on the floor laughing. One day, hopefully, it will happen.
Maybe, or maybe you'll be grateful that it doesn't, because you'll still have that
Yeah,
one thing that's only human to human, you know?
totally.
Well, awesome. Well, hey, so I always love to get a bit of advice for my guests. Not that you haven't given us a ton of advice as we've had this conversation, but I try to make it more unique to each person's journey. And, you have had success, right? And as you and I were talking about before we started recording, when, because we were both involved with Techstars, and, taking a glance at some of the new ideas that are coming through and people that are wanting to get in the program. And, ultimately with founders, right? They believe so strongly in their idea, and they believe that they can make it happen and really, have that knock it out of the park, grand slam, like we did this. But what advice will you give to someone as they are just starting out about success and how to manage their own expectations as they go on their journey?
I'll give two. These are my sort of core beliefs in company building, and there's 50 of them maybe. But these are two that I really live by, that I think goes a long way, that anybody can do. The first one is about having a sense of urgency and a bias towards action. Look, I don't give a damn if you're selling chewing gums, coffee cups, or online software.
Mm-hmm.
I like it when I send an email and 7 minutes later I get a response.
Yes.
I love it when somebody is just snappy and responsive and on their game. It
Yeah.
takes zero years of education to be responsive. It takes 0 years of education to have a bias towards action. It takes 0 years of experience to be on time for stuff, to have a sense of urgency.
Yes.
How you show up matters. I will die on this hill, and I can't,
I'm right there with you.
I can't stand it when people are like, well, how is so-and-so doing it? Well, yeah, they're on their shit. They're replying to the email. They see the email, they reply right away. Wow, what a concept. Maybe you can do the same.
What a concept.
Am I not busy? I'm too busy. Okay, I'm busy too. Everyone else is busy. Hello, welcome to the program.
It's prioritization.
Just be better. Having that kind of sense of urgency as sort of a default operating principle is one of the greatest quote unquote life hacks ever. And maybe you need more sleep. Maybe you need to watch less TV. Maybe you need to whatever. Just fix that for yourself, but show up with that kind of intensity that the work that the work deserves. Because how you do anything is how you do everything. I think if you take the small things and show up with that kind of intentionality and energy, it really carries through to everything that you do, and people want to work with you. How you want to get good at sales? Okay, be on top of your stuff. Show up 5 minutes early to a meeting. End the meeting early if everything has come up. The people on the other side are going to go, I need more than energy in my life. Yeah, we'll go with them.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just did this recently, actually. We were looking to redesign a new website from Geppetto to 248, and I interviewed all kinds of web designers, and I had an impossible timeline that I knew was not realistic. I'm hey, let's ship this by January 3rd, whatever it is. Every designer that I talked to basically said something along the lines of well, we can't really do this, what about this day and this? And there was this one guy who was look, what you're asking for is impossible. Here is how to make it happen. I need this by this date, this by this date, this by this date. Can you do that? This dude got the business.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work with you. I'm trying to work with someone who has that kind of drive. So that's advice number one.
I love that.
I think advice number two is more related to teams, because you have to realize that at some point you're not building a product, you're not building a business, you're building a collection of people who do stuff. That's what a company is. It's a company of people. The founder's real output is the team that he or she inspires and produces. The biggest value of that team has to be everybody cares about everything. And what I mean by that is everybody cares about everything, not just the person who writes the code. I'm talking about the person who's shipping boxes, the person who is answering sales emails, the person who takes out the trash in the company. Everybody cares about everything. You leave it a little bit better than you found it. Not just even about work stuff. I care if you just arrived in a new city and you need to hire a babysitter. I care. You your laptop's keyboard is broken. I care. Let me get you a new one. Everybody cares. This is such an insane superpower that startups have, and by the way, basically impossible to have after 100 people. There's just there's some mathematical social network number that our brains are limited by as humans that have evolved in tribes. We stop caring over 100 people. Micro communities that really care about the same thing is really special. And a large company that doesn't care will always lose to a smaller company that really, really cares. Care. I think a startup that has that kind of energy is in it for the long haul. And it attracts, again, a certain kind of people who are on with the program. Like something really special happens when you make caring explicit. So a sense of urgency and everybody cares about everything are the two pieces of advice that I live by that I recommend other entrepreneurs to follow through.
That was awesome. And like, we have to end it right there because that was so great. That was so much passion. That was so much fire. If anybody takes anything from this, let it be that. So Mert, thank you so much for joining me. How can people find you and learn more about 248?
I'm on LinkedIn and our website is 248.ai, the 3 digits, 248.ai.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you so much for being here, listening, watching. As always, please remember to like, comment, subscribe. And if you have a moment to give me a 5-star review on Apple, I will appreciate it very much. It matters for that algorithm. So always thank you so much. Mert, again, thank you for being here, and we will see you all next week.